Okay, oh my goodness, here we go. It is Tuesday, 2 o'clock on December 20th. And this is Thriving Live with Gabrielle Senza, me, your host. I'm very excited to be here. Uh, and I'm just trying to get the tech to finish loading and connecting. Yes, okay, good. So we are live streaming now to Facebook. We are recording. I think all the tech is running now. So we're good to go. If you are watching this on Facebook, please say hello. And I want you to know that I love you. I love you wherever you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're watching this later, whether you're, just catching up with it on YouTube, stumbling upon it or something like that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time here, this is the Thriving Live series that I started, I guess, in February. This is episode number 36. And I started it with the idea of sharing sort of bits of information about what has helped me go from simply surviving my chaotic and sometimes traumatic life to thriving and living this beautiful, juicy, abundant life that I am very privileged and grateful to be living now. And I am coming to you live from my studio on Railroad Street in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And you'll see in the background that I have some prints on the wall from my Antarctica performance on the glacier. And I have a big painting I did from 2007 in the back, and some photography and my cello and a lot of different things. So you can see that they're not out for you to see this, but if you're looking around, it's evident that boy, I do a lot of different things. And I describe myself as an artist, an activist, and an empowerment coach. And I love to work with people to help them find their own inner wisdom, their brilliance, their creativity, their confidence, and so on, and to help them realize their dreams, but not in the sense that, like, I'm a business coach and I'm going to tell you how to do it from A to Z or anything like that. There are lots of people who are way more experienced and excellent at that than myself. And yeah, but mainly I was in this series, this podcast or video series. I haven't quite determined what I'm calling it yet. It's to share things that have helped me on my path. And because why reinvent the wheel if we don't have to? If there's, if there's a path and I can share it and it's helpful, then I feel like I've done something profoundly important. And I'm grateful for that opportunity, for sure. And so I always start my shows out, as well as workshops and presentations and talks, with a sort of grounding practice, which I usually refer to as pleasure first. Pleasure comes in all different sizes, shapes, colors, forms. It can be sound, it can be movement, it can be a walk, it can be a nap, it can be reading, it can be doing something for or with your body, so if you are new here, you'll see that I do tend to talk about pleasure a lot, and that's one of the core pillars of my practice. I also work with mindset. Mindset is critically important, and meditation, manifestation, all of these things come into play here. So welcome. We'll do this short pleasure first, sort of grounding exercise, which I always need for myself, at least, just to get into really being here, and then to be able to access whatever it is that I'm going to be talking about today, because I don't usually have a plan when I step in live here. And so we'll find out together what it is about. So I'll do a short pleasure first grounding practice. I might talk about topic of the day, topic of the week. And I may give a tool that's useful, that I found useful. And if you are in the chat section of Facebook, you could put a question in there. And if you did, I could answer it. That would be awesome. And then, if you're live or not live, you're watching this later, and there's something that stuck with you from watching this, I would love to hear it in the comments. I would love it if you would just add a note. What struck you? What's the takeaway for you from this this little podcast video show? And then finally, I can let you know other ways to reach me, and so on and so forth. So let's get started with the pleasure first. So let's take it from here. Just getting grounded, getting present with where you are right now at this time. Noticing your breath. It might be shallow, or it might be already calm. Just noticing. My practice is somatic-based coaching, essentially. So learning how to discover and listen to what our bodies have to say to us to inform us of maybe what they need or what they're feeling is a core part of what I do. So in this beginning practice of just getting aware of the weight, the gravity, as it pulls through our body, connecting each of us to whatever we're either standing on or sitting on, and noticing how you're supported there. Supported in the seat, in the chair, or on the bed, or on the couch. Or if you're standing, how the floor is supporting you from below, and that it's always there. It's always there for you. Allowing your shoulders also to drop with the gravity. Maybe with each exhale, you can allow your shoulders to drop more. You can allow your mouth and your jaw and your face, your shoulders. Allow everything to just drop more, relax more. Just lengthening your breath, trying to keep them fairly even. Inhaling and exhaling. For added relaxation, you can make your exhales longer than your inhales. So let's say you inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. Inhale again for 4. Exhale for 6. One more time. Exhale. You can keep it going like that if that feels good to you. You can go back to a normal breath if that feels good to you. I'm wanting to do a little bit of a shoulder stretch. So I'm going to inhale and raise my shoulders up to my ears. On the inhale, hold it, move them as far back as possible so that my shoulder blades are trying to kiss in the back. And then exhale, letting them drop down behind me, sort of like straight down from where they were together. And then do it again. Raise the shoulders straight up with the inhale. Bring them back in the pause. And let them float down with the exhale. You can notice how this really opens up the shoulders a lot, right? One more time. Back. So yeah, I've noticed that when I'm sitting cross-legged, like in meditation, and I do this exercise and my hands are just resting down on my thighs, that when they come down, my shoulders come down again, my hands just rest in this position on my thighs, almost like there's no efforting, but it's almost like it's helping to hold them back and hold them open, which feels really good because usually I'm sitting more like this on the everyday, right? And the shoulders are a little more forward, but with this, back and down, really helps open up my chest and the air, and I can bring breath all the way up to other parts of my body to help with the oxygen flow and the blood flow and all of that. And it feels really, really good to me. Another thing for opening the shoulders is almost like climbing a ladder, but having your hands, instead of being in front of you like you do on a real ladder, on the imaginary ladder, we can just go laterally, even with our shoulders. So reach up, pull down, reach up, down. So you can feel it opening up the shoulders there too, and giving them the opportunity to move in a more open position than they might typically in the everyday experience, right? So you can keep going with that if you'd like. I want to try to keep today a little shorter than is typical for me. Sometimes once I get going, I just really get going, and then I don't want to stop, and I get in the flow of sharing something. But I know that there's a lot going on right now. It's the holiday season. Hanukkah just started, and Christmas is happening, and people are traveling and trying to get shopping done and all of those things, or none of those things for some of us. Some of us have spent holidays alone, and at least for me, there's a lot involved in that. There's a lot tied up in that. And I have both enjoyed it. I've enjoyed having Christmases and holidays by myself and having that time and solitude in my studio and my home, right? Time for me to relax, time for me to journal or watch some good movies, get cozy, that kind of thing. And there's often some like sadness or longing that comes along with that. I've experienced. I basically raised my son as a single parent, and there was so much insecurity in our lives. So just, it was quite destabilized. Very unexpectedly over and over again. And so it was very hard to create traditions and routines around the holidays for my son and myself. And that was painful. I won't lie. That was definitely painful. And to this day, even though now he's 24, I still have like a kind of angst, a sadness about like, we never got that, we never got that together. And whereas I grew up with that in my family, we used to have every year there'd be a Christmas Eve party where lots of friends would come, and mainly friends of my parents, but sometimes friends, of ours, of the children. And we would have great food and great song and all of that kind of thing, and some gifting and stuff. And then Christmas morning, it would just be the five of us in the family, and we'd wake up and we'd like exchange presents and all of that, and maybe have a nice breakfast, and then we'd get on the road and we'd head up to Vermont, and we'd visit with my cousins, my aunt, uncle, and everybody there. And we'd have another whole Christmas exchange present thing there, and a big meal, and all of that. It was formal and stressful in a lot of ways, but it was also really a lot of fun. That can be the case with cousins. So when we get to see cousins, and then sometimes we would even continue on maybe the next day to Maine, or sometimes it would be a week later or a few days later, and we'd go all the way up to Maine and see other cousins and family and uncles and aunts in Maine. And so basically we had 3 Christmases plus the Christmas Eve as kids. And then with my own son, we didn't really have that. And in a lot of times I didn't even have money for gifts. And so I would make things. I'm an artist, so that was doable. But there were times when I couldn't give him what he was really desiring, what he really wanted. And so didn't always have money to create like a big dinner or anything special like that. And I was just in a great deal of basically trauma and crisis all the time for a lot of those years, many of those 24 years that my son has been alive. Unfortunately, not so much in the last 4 years, I guess, since 2019, when things finally shifted. How did things finally shift? Well, there were a whole bunch of ways. And primarily, a few things that come to mind off the top of my head is I was noticing that the music I liked to listen to most was not always very positive. I grew up really loving punk rock and folk music, and not a lot of folk music, but at the time, but and a lot of anarchistic stuff, right, and ideas, and would relate to life and violence and governments and politics and hypocrisy and stuff like that. So listening to that on the regular wasn't exactly uplifting. Certainly at this time, as a single parent who was pretty much at my wit's end. So I intentionally started looking for happier music, but that didn't sound too smarmy or too lightweight for me. I don't know how to say it exactly. So I started listening to like the solfeggio frequencies and more meditative music, just really meditative music, as well as beautiful chorus. That was a great discovery, finding beautiful chorus so that I could listen to their voices and their music and their positive messages. And to have that like in my head, when I first heard it, I still believe this, that it would be such a gift for every infant and toddler to grow up listening to those songs, because they're very uplifting, they're very empowering songs. and can give a world perspective that in a lot of homes and families we might not otherwise get, right? So if chaos and you know, really not great situations, traumatic situations, toxic relationships, dysfunction, and all of that, if that is like the regular everyday part of a child's growing up, that seems like normal, right? And so then our effort is really about learning how to navigate that, how to survive it, how to, get through the next day, try to get our needs met and stuff like that, that was very much a part of my growing up. And yeah, and regretfully, I would say that was also a part of my son's growing up. In a lot of ways, yeah. And so it was really interesting. So what did I do? At the time, I was learning about finding different kinds of music that helped me feel good, helped me feel more calm and more positive and more uplifted. I started going to, I heard about codependency, and I found this lovely group of Codependents Anonymous over in Northampton area, run by women and for women exclusively. So that felt really safe for me to have a space that was focused just on women recovering from codependency, and then learning so much about what codependency looked like. I mean, I was really like reluctant to think or certainly admit that I had that I was operating in a state of codependency in a lot of the relationships I had, and that I learned it from being a child in situations where codependency was just the way everything was run. So that was really eye-opening and very healing. Let's see, so music, Codependents Anonymous, therapy. I had a very good therapist that would sometimes like clue me into where I was missing things I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. So that's why it's really great to have a therapist or a coach. And later I had some amazing coaches that also helped me with this, to sort of show us our blind spots and to reflect back to us how we're doing, right? Because sometimes we might just always be in the negative, like, oh, I'm not doing this enough. Oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, I'm such a failure at this, or I suck at that, or whatever. And pretty much can believe it, right? 100%. Who would say that you've believed some of those nasty things you've thought about yourself? I know I have. So therapists and coaches can be really good at like giving us better reflections of who we are, what we're doing, what we've managed to accomplish, how we're managing to learn to start creating healthier boundaries, healthier relationships, how we're starting to take care of ourselves better or not, and having those people who are in our lives who can do that without any kind of manipulation, right? So that's the idea with a therapist and a coach. They're not related to you. They're not working with you as a coworker and want the position you have or anything like that, right? It's more like, I'm here to help you be your best self, right? I'm here to help you heal. So that's a lovely thing. I think I've grown so much with my therapists, my coaches, and more selective groups of friends who are operating at like really nice, healthy levels of full expression and exuberance about their lives, right? And that makes such a difference, right? Have you spent time with people who are like complaining about things or always pointing out like what's wrong with everything, with other people, with the design of something, with this or that? I'm totally guilty of that. I've done plenty more of that than I wish I had. And I'm still trying to remove sort of the toxicity of those kinds of ways of being. from my own being that way. So it takes, it takes work, it takes awareness, that's where the body stuff really comes in, like learning to have awareness about what is going on in my body right now. What is the emotion that's coming up right now? Because many of us who've had trauma in our lives, and anything related to physical or sexual abuse, often, and emotional abuse, often we're denied the freedom, the right to feel their feelings and to have them and know them, right? So their parents would say, you're not feeling angry, you're not mad, you're not sad, or don't cry, or you have nothing to be sad about, or you know what I mean? Like totally negating your experience. And so for me anyway, and many people I've met on the path of healing, and I've worked with many, many beautiful humans, both learning from them and also then teaching, that, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. So it can be really, really difficult to identify a feeling. How am I feeling? Right? Sometimes it's just like there's just a few choices: happy, sad, angry, afraid. Right? Like sometimes those are just all we can come up with. And that doesn't always seem right or accurate when you're trying to get to a more subtle feeling that's hard to describe. So there's so much I want to share. And like yesterday, I was having a little bit of a time. I'm just checking my notes here and clearing out the stuff that I'm not going to do because I did it last week. Okay. So yesterday I was feeling some not enoughness. And there was a critical part of me that was like very active, like you should be doing that, and you should be doing that, and you shouldn't have done this, and you should have done that, and you're really late on this, and just on and on and on and on. Making me, I just was not feeling great, as you can imagine, with all of that going on. And it kind of even keeps me from wanting to start or know even what to do first, because it's just such an onslaught of criticism, a barrage of like, you should have done this, you shouldn't have done that, and all that. And it's just me, it's just a voice in my head, right? So I remembered that we can take these parts of ourselves, and instead of pushing them away or making them wrong, or just like trying to run away from them by numbing out or doing something that we might later call irresponsible, but in the moment it was a way to cope with all those unpleasant feelings and thoughts. So the idea is, and I did actually, I gave myself the time to do this, and it was very helpful, which is why I'm talking about it today. So I invited that part of me that was saying, you should, you shouldn't, all those things, to come in, like imagining it as a being, and come in and sit on my lap and just know, or just sit with me. It doesn't have to be on my lap, but I just said, please come sit with me. I'm not going to try to change you or try to prove to you that you're wrong. I'm not going to try to change you or fix you or do anything, but just simply be with you and listen. I want to listen to what you have to say. And I was kind of surprised that it didn't continue. It's like, you should be doing this, and you should be doing that, and you shouldn't have this. And no. Instead, it was just very quiet. I just sat in the quiet with it for a while. And reminded it of the fact that I didn't want to change it or make it wrong about anything or try to prove anything. And did it have anything to say? And it was like, just calm. And I was like, could you tell me what how you're feeling right now. And it was like, right now I'm calm. Right now it's peaceful. Like, great. That's so great. Could you tell me what emotion is involved when you're telling me all the things I should do or should have done or need to do, or how I've like messed things up? And when you show up in that way, what is the emotion that's there? And the part said, it's fear. It's fear of failing. It's fear of looking bad. It's fear that, that you're going to be seen in a certain way. And I don't want that to happen. And so I feel like it's my responsibility to keep you on track and keep you going and keep you from like messing up and doing all these things. And I was like, thank you. Again, just not trying to react, not trying to respond with anything other than a thank you, like almost like the dyad practice that I teach and that I've learned, which is like to hear the answer and let it land without any kind of prepared response, without any kind of guarding or anything like that. It's just like, okay, I understand it. Thank you. Is there something more? Right. And so we would continue that way. No back and forth conversation, no opinions based on what it is they said. As much as possible, we try to avoid those, so that it's a free, open conversation or communication. It's a communication, really, where the part, and this is true for humans too, when we're having a dyad between people, the other feels heard and seen and understood. And so interestingly, when I brought the part in the beginning, and I was just sitting there with it, and it was so quiet, it knew it was being seen. It's like, it's nice to be seen. It's nice to be here. I don't have to shout. You're paying attention. Right? Like, that was such an awareness, such an amazing thing to learn. So I asked it, how do you feel about that job of trying to keep me on task and trying to tell me all the things I should do and shouldn't do and all the things like that? And the response was like, I hate it. I hate it. I wish I didn't have to do it. And then I asked, like, well, if you could imagine that you had done that job so perfectly, in fact, you did, to get me right here in this moment that we're sitting in right now together. Imagine that that was your full mission and you've completely mastered it. You killed it. You did it. You have served that. You've achieved that goal 100%. And knowing that you have accomplished that, what would that allow for you next? What does that open up for you? And its response was, oh, more ease, more relaxation, more rest. All right, great. And then we went on and on through this practice. I was like, okay, thank you. So imagine achieving that, like full rest and ease and relaxation, exactly as you see it. And then once you had that 100% achieved, what would that look like? What would that open up for you? And then it was like, oh, well, I could have clear communication with your heart and with source, and there would be so much more serendipity and synchronicity and clearer channels and way more fun, right? It started getting very excited. And so we continued with that, asking each time, like, once you had that fully realized, what would then open up for you? What would be available for you then? With each one accomplished. And so we kept getting up to this like beautiful, basically it was saying that it wanted to just cheer me on, that it wanted to encourage me and like help create all these like beautiful magic synchronicities and, be on board with connecting with my heart and my spirit, and like being able to watch the playing field and how awesome things are happening, right? So that the opportunities that are coming are things I can act on, and that there's just freedom of choice to act on them, that they don't have to be like trying to bludgeon me and be like, you have to do this, you should do that, you should have done that. It's like, no, like, oh my gosh, let me tell you, this part was so happy to get this promotion and no longer be the critical should'er, the one that's telling me I should do this, I should do that, but to become like the enthusiastic cheerleader in my life. And like, so what a beautiful, fun relationship now. So anyway, that was super helpful for me yesterday. And I'm bringing it up because it is really a tool, right? So when we are sort of overcome with emotions that may be familiar, and they tend to keep us stuck, or they tend to have us want to run away from them or bypass them or numb them down with alcohol or sex or porn or whatever the thing is, or massive exercise, whatever it is, to instead try being with the emotion for a moment as though it's a part, it's a being that lives inside of you, wants the best for you, and is tender and gentle, and can just sit with it without being critical, without demanding anything at all, and giving it space to find out, what emotions are you holding? What are you attempting to do? And what would you rather, what would be available to you if you felt you had completed that and you could, other things were available to you? Which is a beautiful way also to look at anywhere we're stuck. It's kind of related to daydreaming, but it's a little different because there's the emotional component that's really important. So anyway, so when we bump into those sort of overwhelming emotions, I would encourage you, especially this time of year where everything is so rapid and there's so much, energy and emotion around gatherings and not gatherings. And, COVID isn't over. And so there's still a lot of illness and deaths and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of stress going on. And so, especially given that that is the case, to allow yourself to take a few moments to sit with yourself and get grounded if you can, do that practice of like just sitting and being still with your breathing for a few minutes. Tap into your emotion and see what part needs to speak to you, letting it have the space to speak, seeing what its highest vision is for itself, for you, celebrating those along the way. Journal about it or something so that there's a way to ground it and like keep it present for you. So today I'm making a little card that I'll put up maybe near my bathroom mirror or something like that, that reminds me that the critical should'er, the person who is should'ing, is now my biggest cheerleader. Yeah. And to remember that, and to remember what its function is, and that I have this person on my side. So those are the topics and tools for today. And I would love to hear from you what tools work for you, what things help you grow and be better versions of yourself and help you move out of a rut of perhaps negativity. Yeah. Noticing how you feel when you're around certain people versus how you feel when you're around other people, and who draws or sucks energy away from you, and who kind of inspires you and gives you energy. Like, those are really important things to notice, because it's all part of your well-being, and it's all part of thriving. The more you can consciously choose where you are, how you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, and how you relate to your emotions, and to listen to your body. Those are like super good keys to living a vibrant, abundant, thriving life. And when you can focus, if you watch my show before, you would hear me say many times that the more you focus on the good things that are happening in your life, and even good random things in general, like even on the street or, in the mailbox or in the news or something like that, and to hold the goodness and give it some attention, as opposed to just looking for the faults and just noticing the faults and the things that aren't working and the things, right? And then talking about them, giving them energy just brings more of those. If you bring more energy and attention to the things that delight you, or that give you pleasure or satisfaction or relaxing or just feel good, more of that will come to you. So we get to choose that. Oh, and I just heard this beautiful parable yesterday. A man stands outside of his village, and when there are travelers along the route, and they're stopping at the village, considering coming in, I'm imagining like the little hill towns in Italy, right, where they have the stone walls. And the man says, hello, how are you? That kind of thing. And the traveler may say, what are the people like here? Are they good people? And the man who stands out there says, how did you find the people that were in the place where you came from? And if the traveler says, oh, they were bad people, they're terrible people, then the man says, oh, you'll find those kinds of people here too. You might just want to move on. But if the traveler says, oh, they're wonderful people, I adore them, they're so kind and friendly, then the man at the outside the town says, you will find those people here too. Welcome. So the point is, right, how we see and experience life is how we get to see and experience life. It sounds so redundant, but it's a reflection, right? So when we're critical of things out there, we can instead look at things inside, where our faults are, where our weaknesses are, and so on, and to bring those up and try to heal ourselves from that, give ourselves compassion and love and understanding. Really seeing ourselves, seeing those parts of ourselves that need to be seen, and learning to really love all those parts of ourselves, even the parts we have been critical of. And then we can be more loving towards others, and we will become more loving ourselves, more lovable ourselves. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope it didn't feel like a fire hose. I'm trying to keep it rather short, although we're already at 43 minutes. So I'm going to sign off now. I am so grateful for you being here, for you finding the channel. If you are liking it, go ahead and subscribe to Thriving Live. I have a feeling it's going to change in 2023, and I haven't quite settled on how that's going to be. So if you have some input you'd like to share, I would love to hear it. You can put it in the comments in the YouTube once it's loaded, or you can put it in the comments in Facebook and let me know your thoughts. And if you're interested in my work as an artist, you can always go to gabriellesenza.com. And if you want to know more about my coaching practice and empowerment and developing these skills around, body informed practice, like what's going on in our bodies and how does that affect our brains and vice versa. There's a big correlation there. Then you could look into my morepleasureplease.com website, and I'm on Instagram, Gabrielle Senza Studio, Invisibility Lab, We Walk Unafraid, as well as more pleasure, please. And I just added Antarctica temporalis, which is a big project that's coming on board having to do with climate action. So I hope you'll join me in any or all of those spaces, and even better, to participate. That would be so lovely. I wish you all the best for the weeks to come, for the days to come, for the life to come, and that you get to have tons of magic, love, delight, and health. All right, I love you. Ciao.